Hello and welcome to Pursuit 365 Spirituality Show. I'm Rani Sanghera, holistic healer, registered yoga instructor, psychedelic guide, and coach. Today I have Milan Fraszczak. I can't say it properly, but I'm sorry. He is from the Sunshine Coast. He owns a gym and runs a podcast as well on spirituality. Welcome, Milan.
Thank you for
Yeah,
having me, Ronnie.
no problem. How are you today?
I'm great. It's a really good day.
Let's begin by you just giving us, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm gonna try to make it in a little bit, I guess. I'm originally from Poland. I moved to the Sunshine Coast 8 years ago. I actually came from California, straight from California to Sunshine Coast from Los Angeles. So it was a big, crazy move, which has been amazing for me and my family. I like to think, and I never felt more as at home that I do right here on Sunshine Coast. Uh, I'm a fitness trainer by fluke. uh, I've been doing martial arts all my life, and when I moved away from Poland, and first I moved to England. When I moved away, I tried to find myself to do something, and there it was, a gym. I'm like, okay, I could maybe do that, and then it went from there. And I just stuck to it. I've been doing that for nearly 20 years almost. Yeah, 20 years I've been doing fitness and training and practicing all different forms of movement. I've been stuck in it. Sometimes I feel stuck in it. But recently, and it's funny, it has to do something with COVID times and how that hit and how people had to deal with uh, all sorts of new stimuli that we receive through media and else. So yeah, I found that I'm struggling. I'm struggling with coping with everything that's been put upon us, and I think that's what led me to starting to talk about this and try to kind of tackle the new reality that we've been presented with in a new way. So that changed me, and that changed the way I look at things and how I run my business and how I run my classes now and how I approach my life and my kids and my marriage and everything. So
Right.
I'm really excited to talk about it with whoever wishes.
so, tell me, what does spirituality mean to you?
Spirituality. I'm still kind of discovering that, I'm not like 100% certain and I can define it, but in a most simple words, I would say connection with myself. How
Mm,
well I can connect with myself and how that translates to the relationship with everything that surrounds me.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything begins with our relationship to
Yeah.
self.
To
Yeah,
ourselves.
totally
Yeah,
agree with that.
100%.
um, so, do you integrate spirituality into your training programs? Or do you have like a holistic well-being sort of program at all?
I find it very tricky because nobody comes to the gym to find themselves spiritually. At least that's not the initial intention. So it's a very, very subtle work that I do,
Hmm.
and I don't really talk about it openly other than I do on my podcast, right? So
Ah.
so this is kind of like I have those two separate lives, and everybody who comes to the gym knows that I do run that podcast.
Hmm.
I don't know, brag about it and invite people to listen to it necessarily, but I make it known in the emails. I'll post it online on our Facebook socials and Instagram and such, and it's getting a little bit of momentum, right? And I noticed that for the last few months how it connects in a way that the vibe, the commonly known called vibration at the gym is different, right? That
Mm,
I have different crowds starting to open up to what we do at the gym, which previously have been like stigmatized with like this is
right.
a CrossFit gym, and all the crazy people go there. And then slowly that relationship changes, and I like to think the only thing I changed in my approach to running my business and classes is just that, connecting with myself better,
Right.
figuring out what is it that we need to have this more wholesome life. And through my own practice, I noticed that basically I'm attracting that energy now. So
Exactly.
that's, it's it's not something that I question anymore or something that I marvel on. I'm just like, at the moment I'm riding that wave. It's really, really quite exciting, and to see how things just fall into place. That synchronicity that's is commonly talked about is actually very palpable at the moment.
Yeah. Something that often happens with coaching, like spiritual life coaching for myself as well, is that people come in and they see change in themselves and then they immediately want somebody else to change, their
Hmm.
partner or something. And I think you described it the best. Instead of trying to change people, you just continue being who you are. And because your vibration has changed, your energy has changed, that it's attracting like minds and it's
Yeah.
bringing other people to that vibration.
Yeah, it's a very
Yeah.
it's a very interesting position to be in, because you're so excited and you want people to kind of feel the same way,
Yeah.
but you can't force it on them, you know
No.
so how do you show up in a way that's like very organic and not forced, like I said. Yeah, it's an ongoing process.
Hmm.
It's really quite cool.
Yeah. The only person you can change is yourself, really, at the end of the day.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about your podcast a little bit. What
Okay.
inspired you to explore topics like culture and relationships with spirituality?
Well, it's just my own experience of not being able to talk with too many people about it. And
Yeah.
if you do bring it up, people get a bit defensive, people close off. It's like, oh, spirituality, religion, it's not something, that we can judge or discuss, etc. And I don't necessarily agree. Like, I've realized a while ago that I'm trying to show up with everything I do from the best place possible,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if I assume that about myself and I know that I just want what's best for everybody, including myself, then me wanting to talk about it has that same intention, right?
Right.
So it's quite funny, because I would not ever call up a stranger and said, "Hey, could you meet up with me? You seem like a good person to talk about culture or spirituality." And a podcast was like a great excuse to do it. It's like,
Yeah.
"Hey, I run this podcast. I want more people to talk about it and be exposed to those kinds of conversations. And
Hmm.
would you mind, spending an hour with me and chat about this stuff?" And I never reveal questions that I have. I
Yeah.
give a broad, spectrum of topics, that vary, like between spirituality, culture, conditioning, and relationships, parenting too, a little bit. Um, and then either they're down or they're not, and they're always down to
They're
do it.
always
And
down. Yeah.
yeah, so I'm really excited, because it's like it's a very kind of unprecedented in a way situation, at least here on the Sunshine Coast, when I can like call up a pastor or a priest or some spiritual healer or
Right.
somebody, and they're like always wanting to talk about it. And I'm,
Right.
I do it for my own benefit, as I do for the broader public that wants to listen to this.
Nice. So do you encourage sort of practices like mindfulness at the gym? Do you try to incorporate stuff like that when you're creating programs or working one on one with people?
Well, program per se, and then the movements and types of exercises that we do is it's more or less generic. It's that approach, and then how we want to set people minds, how to approach that exercise, that differs from gym to gym. And I have a couple of coaches that work with me. My wife coaches a couple of classes, and so I'm really trying to get everybody on that similar level. Like, you come into the gym, the goals, lose fat or build some muscle or lift stronger or
Right.
something. All those goals are very secondary for me. Like, my goal for everybody is to accept exercise and movement and wanting to move really well as as their new way.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're not like we eat healthy foods, right? You pay attention to the diet, like we
Right.
move in a good way, and this is just something that we're not doing periodically. This is just something we do every day
Every
or
day.
several times a week. And this is part of our routine because we do want to maintain our healthy body.
Yeah.
In a healthy body, healthy mind. um, Even Christians talk about it. Like when I talk to the Christian pastors,
Yeah.
we have to look after our body because that's ultimately showing more respect for the God, right? So it's all kind of connected and intertwined like that. And I'll throw some hints from time to time. I'll talk a lot about the mindset, and
Yeah.
I try not to come across as like I'm preaching, like I don't want to be the preacher of like, yeah, you need to be doing this, yeah, I'm really not interested in that. I'm trying
Hmm.
to like lead by example, and if somebody's, vibing with it, then they'll follow suit. If they're not, then they just do their own thing. I'm sure I have
Yeah.
people at the gym who just basically come because of the programming and the equipment and such. That stuff that we do, and not necessarily my ideology behind it.
Right.
So there's room for everything there.
So, what are some of the ways that you practice spirituality in your own personal life, or even um, how you would bring that into your own workouts or your own nutrition or well being?
I really believe in power of our will and power of our mind.
Hmm.
So in a workouts, personally for me, I'll start from the end, like how I incorporate it. The CrossFit style workouts are known for the high intensity and pushing those thresholds every time, right? The more you do it, the more you know what your body is capable of. And I noticed a long time ago now that the only thing that's stopping me from doing something better or lifting something heavier or moving faster in a certain way is just my mind, right?
Mm,
So this is where I turn inwards and say, okay, well, I know I can move that many times in a minute, so I just need to be able to do it in my head first, and then my body follows suit.
mm,
And so that's like the main example of incorporating that connection with the inner me, uh, to present as an outcome, in a form of like lifted weight or
right.
some speed, some time. So great time I did in the workout or
Hmm.
something. But on a day-to-day basis, well, we didn't have much spirituality in my family. I have three children, and they're young, and me and my wife are really quite open, and we do practice different forms of spirituality, whether it be meditation
Mm,
or prayer, or attending different events. And we try to be very regular with our Sunday church. So we go to different churches. I loosely call it church hopping. We, we go for different denomination churches, and it's quite interesting to see the different ways, the Christian faith presents itself. And I
hmm.
have a Catholic background, so it's a little closer to me. But what I found is closest to my heart recently is sweat lodges.
Ah,
Yeah, so I've been doing
yeah.
sweat
Tell me a bit
lodges.
more about that.
Yeah, sweat lodges. I've been exposed to by my dear friend Samir, and he's been going to sweat lodges himself for over 2 years. And you know how it is. Like, come check it out, and I'm went to check it
Yeah.
out, and I really, really resonate with what's going on in a sweat lodge. This is the
Hmm.
sweat lodge I attend is a Lakota style sweat lodge. So
Hmm.
the Lakota style songs, Sundance songs are sang, and the, the spiritual component with this physical suffering in a total darkness, it's
Mm,
something that really speaks to me, because
yeah.
the whoever pours the lodge, all they talk about all the time is that as soon as you enter the lodge, you start praying, and no matter what's going on, you just keep that prayer going, like whether it's inside your head or you want to
Hmm.
speak it out loud, or it's your turn to pray in front of everybody, right? That prayer doesn't stop. However, there is this really strenuous physical component of extreme heat and steam and stuff, and that combined just brings me to another level, you know. So I
Right.
always look forward to it. It's almost like a weekly routine, but it doesn't always happen every week. So they call
Mm.
the lodge, and then we have a little chat, and everybody's like, "Okay, lodge tonight," and then everybody shows up.
So where does that take place? Is that on the Sunshine Coast?
Yeah, yeah, it's in Roberts
Oh.
Creek. There is a spot, and it's kind of like by invite sort of thing, And
Mm.
then what I do appreciate about it is there is no charge for it. You don't have to sign up for it. It's very organic and natural way of just showing
Mm.
up. Nobody ever, there's no talk of money or anything. If you contribute by
Right.
bringing wood, that's appreciated. If you bring
Yeah.
snacks for after the lodge, that's really appreciated.
Yeah.
If you come in and put work and then clean up or chop wood or do something, all that matters. And to me,
Mm.
it's makes the most sense, really.
Yeah. It's a real sense of community, and what a beautiful way to heal,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
When you
Yeah.
don't have that when you don't have that exchange of money
Yeah,
covering. There is an
absolutely.
exchange. There's an energetic exchange that's
Yeah.
happening there.
And what
That's
happens is that
beautiful.
because of that element of you praying out loud, I realized very soon I have no idea how to do it. So there was the motivation. It's like, okay, well, I need to be able to pray in a way that can be vocalized and make sense, and so it's clear in my head.
Mm.
So every time I'm getting better at it. And the more I'm better at praying, the more I feel like, I'm getting somewhere with it. So there is this
Right.
ongoing process and in getting better at prayer and listening, and also listening to other people pray. It's like unbelievably humbling in a way, but also inspiring. There's some people that have this amazing way of prayer that
Mhm.
I'm just marveling just listening to them. And
Yeah.
then others have different ways. And I resonate with certain people that just like are really encompassing everything that's happening in the world in their prayer, whereas
Mm.
me personally, I'm really focused around my own being, right? So opening myself up and really connecting with a broader universe through prayer is something very healing for me.
Yeah, that goes across all cultures, prayer and chanting or mantra,
Hmm.
and the power behind words. Like, words carry energy,
Hmm.
and that and vibration. And so you're feeling the vibrational impact of others as they pray, and others are feeling yours. Even you feel your own
Yeah,
within your own body, and then you start to shake things up a little bit.
correct. Yeah, yeah.
Right, then it's unblocking energetic channels for you. I'm sure you feel fantastic when you come out of one of those
Every time.
every time.
And I have a great comparison because I spent like the first 12 to 15 years of my life going to a Catholic church, and
Mm.
there's a lot of singing and praying there, but all those songs and prayers are very mechanical in a way. Everybody repeats the same scripture. Everybody says the same words at the same time, and it's not very personal. So that's another thing that I also appreciate about the non-denominational Christian churches, where the prayer is also very organic, and I do appreciate that about the pastors, that they can just go up on stage and start praying in a way that's just in a moment, not like reciting stuff from the book.
Right.
It's makes difference for me.
Yeah, I think it's really cool that you go to different churches, and check out what different faiths are doing.
Hmm.
But at the center of all of it, it's the same, really.
Yeah, I
Right?
agree.
We're all trying to be better and live better, and live by these rules or guidelines, may you have it, to be kind to one another, to show love instead of anger, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah,
Yeah.
that is beautiful.
Yeah. And you bring your family with you, which I think is really cool.
Well, like, especially, like I want my children to be exposed to certain values, and we
Yeah.
can practice those values at home. But when they see that it's not just their family, but plenty of other families and people generally live that way, yeah, it's something that, yeah, both me and my wife are started doing that not very long ago, but I feel like it's a big part of our routine.
Yeah, that's really cool. So, back to your podcast. Actually, I
Yeah,
have a question about
sure.
that. Tell me about something interesting that you've learned from the people that have been on your show.
Whew, okay, that's a good one. Um, well, what I'm trying to observe generally when the more episodes I have done, the more comparison I have of how people look at certain things, and something that I've learned, or maybe just um, reinforced my conviction about it, was that certain ways are more closed off than the other ways, you know.
Hmm.
For example, the indigenous native way is very open and treats everybody as connected beings, and plants and people and animals, and everything is connected and part of the same world, right? And there is multiple ways of achieving um, that awareness, awakening, that higher state, that feeling. And
Hmm.
that's similar to Hinduism, for example, right? And Buddhism. There's more than one way.
Right.
All the ways are good ways as long as they get you there, right? And that's where Christianity is different.
Hmm.
That was like a big lesson to me, for me to see that for Christians, Jesus and God is the only way and the way to salvation, right? And everything else was false gods. And I just can't really wrap my head around it, right? So this is something I learned, and I still go to Christian churches, but I keep that in mind. And when I have conversation with my kids, I bring that up. It's like, this is one way of doing this. There's other ways of doing this. And
Right.
and we try to expose them to many different ways. I
Yeah.
I
And
place them.
all the
Yeah,
paths, again, every path is pointing to the same thing, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's all
Yeah.
has the same thing in common. Um, yeah, that's probably the most interesting thing, and if I could pick like any other, that's a good question. I should ponder that more. What is it that I actually learned from each person? Maybe I should make a list. Sorry, I can't answer this question that specifically like I would
That's
want to, but
okay.
yeah.
So, would you say that you've had a spiritual awakening?
I feel like the best sign of people knowing that they're getting that direction is not talking about it. I want to think
Mm.
that way. I definitely see changes in myself and how I
Mhm.
how I show up in life. Um, but every time I learn something new, I'm like, oh yeah, I still have ways to go. I still have ways to go.
Okay. Let me ask you in a different
Uh-huh.
way. Um, since, let's say, if it's happened, your spiritual awakening,
Hmm.
have you noticed a change in how you see the world? When you look at nature, when you look at your children, when you look at people coming into your gym, has it changed how you view them?
The good answer to that question is turning to love.
Hmm.
You know, I love is that concept that you hear about, you talk about it, you tell people you love them, but like I don't think that until like not very long ago, I I've actually realized what it means to show up in the loving way.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the main difference. I would for years and years I would bring it up with my wife that everybody who shows up, the new person in my life, I give him the carte blanche. I never judge people right away.
Hmm.
That's something that I'm proud of. I practice, and I give everybody even chances when I meet them, right? And it's just how they show up in my life kind of builds that reputation, right? And that really ties in with that loving everybody for the way they are.
Hmm.
And it requires constant reminders, and then seeing it's like somebody triggers you about
Mm.
something, and then
Yeah.
initially you just want to be like, oh, such and such, or well, this and that, but I'm
Yes.
just like, now I notice that I can see that I'm always trying to find a possibility in my head to justify why they show up that way that triggers me. Oh, maybe there is a reason they trigger
Mm.
me, right?
Yeah.
And that's where it starts, so that awareness of everybody having their own story and everybody triggering, if there's somebody that triggers me about something,
Right.
yeah, it's never like, I just like, oh, it's on them, so taking responsibility
Yeah.
continuously for everything that's happening around me.
Right.
Yeah, it's a big change for sure.
Yeah. I mean, and then even when you say they are triggering me, I mean, at the end of the day, we are allowing ourselves to get triggered.
Correct.
Right. And
Yeah.
so it's that journey inward. Okay. So what happened? Why am I getting angry? And generally, anger is a mask, right?
Yeah, correct.
And there is something else lying underneath that,
Hmm.
you
Yeah,
know.
I found like a quick anecdote that would be a good example. um it's a funny one.
Okay.
um I
Please
pull
share.
up I pull up to a recycling depot in Gibsons, and there's one car that's parked at an angle, and I have a big truck, so it's like, ugh, how do I park now? It's the only spot, and the car is parked at an angle, so it's gonna be a little awkward. So I reverse into that spot, and I kind of block the driver's side, on the other car, but I have space to get out. And I'm thinking to myself, well, I'm just here. I'm not going anywhere. Somebody needs to leave. I need to move the cars. It's not a big deal, And I go about my business and do the stuff and whatever. And then some lady comes up to me. She's like, "Is this your truck?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's my truck." And she goes to me, "Well, when you were parking, didn't you think about, that the driver of the car next to you will not be able to get in?" And I'm like, as a matter of fact, I did think about that, and I backed in, and I thought to myself, well, I'm just here, you can ask me, whoever's going to want to go, and, I'll move my truck when necessary. And then I went a step further and I asked, well, did you think about it that every car is parked straight and your car is the only car parked at an angle? And then the lady lost her proverbial shit. And it didn't bother me at all. I was like,
Wow.
well, I turned around, it's like, I'll move my truck when I'm done. And we ended the conversation. And she had nothing left, because all she came was that anger that came up. And she saw that the anger didn't do anything for me. And, that was a good kind of representation. Like, okay,
Mm,
I'm getting some. I'm not getting an argument with a lady. I'm just hushing things out in that way.
yeah.
So it was quite interesting to see. Yeah.
Mm,
And I also found that the more I show up in life this way, I don't really attract situations like that anymore. You
yeah.
know,
Yeah.
if people are confrontational and they come from that angry place, they attract that energy and they always find themselves in those situations,
Yeah.
and that was the only instance I had in a longer time, so I say to myself, yeah, I'm doing something right, perhaps.
Yeah, and anger is a coping mechanism for people, and they
Hmm.
want to get angry. They want you to meet them there, and then it just kind of snowballs,
Hmm.
right?
It's
But if
interesting
you
for me to
stay
see.
calm and you
Yeah.
stay collected and you practice your breath work or your mantra or your chant or whatever you want to do in that moment, um, then it completely diffuses the situation,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. I love
Yeah.
it. I love to just show up that way and it'd be like,
It's nice and it's good practice. I mean, um, there are going to be times when that doesn't always happen. Like maybe we're, you know, haven't slept and all these things have led up to this moment where this person just says one tiny thing and then you're like, ah,
yeah, yeah.
but
Well,
but
that happens with my
we
kids.
practice and that's
Yeah,
okay. We're going to make mistakes along the way, you know.
yeah. If that
Yeah.
happens with anybody, it's my children. Yeah,
They
yeah.
are
Like
our
you said.
biggest
Yeah,
teachers.
yeah, they are. Yeah, I can
I
deal
do
with the
know it's
entire
very
life, but when I'm
challenging.
tired, like you said, and I'm just at the end of my energy tank, and they push the buttons, it's hard to stay collected sometimes, for
Yeah,
sure.
that's when all of this practice comes in, and you really have to dig deep
Hmm.
and just remember they're children.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, they're
exactly.
kids. They're just kids.
They're just kids.
I always remind myself, am I really letting a 6-year-old make me this angry, or allow
Hmm.
allow myself to get this angry over a 6-year-old? Come on.
Yeah,
You know, there are other things to be really angry about, and that's
yeah,
just
yeah,
not one of
for
them.
sure.
Well, Milan, it's been awesome speaking with you. Is there anything else you want to share before we wrap up?
Um, no, I think we've covered a good amount of stuff. Yeah, thank you for your questions are very good. I feel guilty to myself. It's like, oh, I wish I thought about certain things a little bit more. But you actually motivated me to get back to my episodes and go through them and see what actually I got out of each one. Yeah,
Yeah,
thank
right
you for
on.
that.
I'm so excited. Well, thanks again so much for being on the show. I hope to have you back,
For
if
sure.
you would be so inclined to come. And have a great night. Have a
Yeah,
great
thank you.
day. Okay, bye.
Bye.